I've been working as a journalist for 30 years and some months now. Out of that, about 17 years is full-time rural reporting. I spend 270 to 300 days a year in the villages in very poor regions. For me, it's very simple. 72% of the population of my country lives in the villages. So obviously, if I have to understand how the country is doing, how society is doing, I have to understand how they are doing.
हे साईनाथ साहेब आहे. साईनाथ हे मुंबईचे पत्रकार आहे, इंग्रजीचे.
शेखुराव टेंगरे.
शिकोराव टेंगरे. और ये आपका पिताजी था?
हाँ, हमारे पिताजी था।
तो ये इसका कारण क्या था विष्णु?
जो 7 बार रहता खेती का सर, उस पर बोझा था और सोसाइटी का कुछ कर्जा था, बैंक का था।
बैंक का कितना?
50 के नज़दीक हो गया या कम होगा?
50 का नज़दीक है कम.
हाँ.
When I was a very conventionally trained journalist, went to a news agency and followed all those doctrines of journalism which always give the last word to authority. I always tell my students and I tell other journalists, our choice is, do we want to be journalists or do we want to be stenographers? I was trying to tell the story too much rather than let people tell their story. I went back and did it the other way. Living with the communities that I was writing about. By that time, the Indian media were focusing on the top 5%, whom I call the beautiful people. So I decided I would talk about the other 5%, the other beautiful people, the bottom 5%.
सुरुवातीला तर आमचा विश्वासच नव्हता बसला की बाबा असे करतील म्हणून आमचे. म्हणजे खूप अशा परिस्थिती येऊन गेलेल्या आहेत आमच्यावर, पण भावांनी असं कधीच म्हणजे असं कधीच असा विषय पण काढला नाही, कधीच काही केलं नाही, पण असं अचानकच केलं भावांनी.
काय होतं म्हणजे जे तू परिस्थिती सांगते ते?
आमचं तर पूर्ण शेतीवरच होतं आणि म्हणजे शेती व्यतिरिक्त आणखी दुसरं काहीच नव्हतं. त्याच्यामुळे मग शेतीमध्ये जर काही नाही आलं तर मग तसं बाकीच्या याच्यावर तर परिणाम होतच ना.
The film looks at the issue of inequality through my own work and through my work on the farm crisis, on the agrarian crisis in India, which has claimed nearly 250,000 human lives in suicide since 1995. In fact, new figures have come out after the making of the film. Now, the maker of the film, Deepa Bhatia, is a very successful Bollywood filmmaker who got disturbed by reading my reports on the suicides. The title is taken from an essay I wrote quite some time ago on the concept of Nero's guess. That essay was about the extraordinary inequality that's growing in most societies and the mindset it brings towards other people.
Yes, Yamaha.
We have fashion correspondents, we have glamour correspondents, we have society correspondents. Not a single newspaper or channel in this country has a correspondent working full-time on poverty. The Lakme India Fashion Week was functioning in Mumbai, and you had 512 accredited correspondents covering the event. At the Lakme Fashion Week that year, the girls were displaying cotton gum in Mumbai. 1 hour's flight away in Vidarbha, the men and women who grew that cotton were taking their own lives at the rate of 6 to 8 each day.
हम किसान हो गए, हमने कौन सा पाप किया? हम पर कोई ख्याल नहीं दे, कुछ भी कोई हमारा ध्यान नहीं देते, कोई हमारी हाथ नहीं सुनते. कुछ ना कुछ आपको करना होगा, नहीं तो ये आत्महत्या होने वाली है.
The economic policies that have been dominating this world, not just India, for the last 30 years, India for the last 20 years, are extremely anti-poor. Okay? You just look at the 2008 meltdown. The meltdown, the global meltdown did not begin in September 2008. It did not end in January 2010. When 100 other countries were suffering from these kind of policies, it was all fine because the rich were doing well. When Wall Street collapsed, then we called it a global crisis. Okay? When the guys in the suits, when the shit hit the fan for them, then it's a crisis. When poor people starve and die, that's not a crisis, that's normal. Poor family, they cannot afford anything. This down village. Suicide for the same reason. Harassment by money lenders. Agriculture too expensive. No credit from the bank. Income crash. That's his young wife. Unable to feed his family. His life. Agriculture should be in the hands of farmers. Second, it needs to de-link. They need to de-link from the high cost, high chemical models of agriculture. Now that is as important whether it's Netherlands or France or India. And what is supremely important to my mind is getting corporations out of agriculture. In fact, getting corporations out of your life. Because it's the corporate control of agriculture that has brought about this crisis. Millions have left their homes and villages, heading for the towns as employment in rural India has reached its lowest ever since we started keeping data. The 90s were the first time in your history, since the Green Revolution, the rate of growth of employment fell below the rate of growth of the population. Millions have left the villages as a consequence, searching for jobs that are not there. Countless thousands of families have broken up in the process as different members of families have gone to different venues looking for work. For the first time in the 90s in the history of this country, for the first time, the Supreme Court pulled up 6 states over hunger deaths for the first time resurfacing since the 1943 Bengal famine. In the last 15 years, the fastest growing sector in this country is not IT, it's not software, it's inequality. It has grown faster than at any time in our history since the time of the colonial Raj. I think the film has its message. I'll leave it to them to figure out who Nero's guests are.